Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lori, and this is
Megan.
Yay! So, those of you who have been with me since 2019, anyway, remember that we did the Advent Book Exchange that year. So, Megan was a part of my video a couple of times, and then I sent in photos of her every day when she opened her gifts. But today we're together and we have something really special to celebrate because Megan is getting married. Yay! At the end of March. And so she had this brilliant idea do you want to tell them what your brilliant idea was?
Oh, no, you can.
To choose four books for her to read each month from now through March. And that one would be something old, one would be something new, one would be something borrowed, one would be something blue. And when she told me, I thought, I want to do that too. So I kind of busted up in on that and said, I'm going to do that too. And then we talked about sharing it on BookTube since I just started again. So thank you. Welcome again.
Thanks. Back by popular demand.
That's right, because people have said they missed you and they love those videos so much. So cheers for being popular on YouTube. Megan also has her own YouTube channel. Do you want to tell them the name of it?
I think I think that it's Miss Johnson's Book Nook,
Is it?
but I'm not 100%
I'll put a
sure.
link in the comments below.
Subscribe.
Yes, do. But it's
I read children's books.
Yeah, it's for kids.
And
for
math
kids.
things.
Megan is a teacher that some of you might remember. Yeah. So
you can learn how to skip count.
Did I tell you this when Addie spent the night the other day? She was
watching
watching.
She's my biggest fan.
And I woke up and was like, what is that? What is going on? Okay, so let's start with what we read in the month of January. And we'll start with something old. So you want to go first? You're the bride.
So my something old wasn't like something old because I don't really like old books. I don't like classics, but it was old to me. It was something that I had already read. And actually Lisa recommended it. So it was The Dogs of Babel by Carolyn Parkhurst. I had read it
There you go.
Several years ago and really liked it and wanted to reread it. And I wanted to reread more this year anyway because I just felt like it. There's a lot of books that I've been meaning to reread. So I picked that one up and reread it, and it was just as devastating as it was the first time.
I was gonna say that was a hard read for me, and I remember it being a hard read for all of us. But
I appreciated that I picked that one for this particular reading challenge because it is a lot about the dynamics of a marriage and how the marriage kind of changed this woman and their whole life and the whole course of their lives.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to read it from a new perspective.
Yeah, now that you said that, I also remember there was a lot to that as well.
I think it would also make a great movie, but there are some things involving animals that I think would not be great on screen. So I feel like that's why they haven't adapted it.
Yeah, that's probably
But true. I do think it would make a riveting movie.
Yes, I agree. All right. Well, my something old was fairly old. I read Sad Cypress by Agatha Christie. It was originally published in March of 1940. Yeah, so it is part of my, it also fulfills the something old prompt, but I am doing, the Read Christie, I know, the Read Christie challenge again this year for as long as I stick with it. And this was one, I don't know if I ever read it. Like if I had read it, it was when I was really young, when I first started reading Agatha Christie. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember it though. And it's a different one in that it doesn't start off with a murder. In fact, the murder doesn't happen until almost halfway through the book. Also, it doesn't start out with the detective, which in this case is Hercule Poirot, but I will say he has a smaller part to play in this one than most of the other Christies. So he doesn't come in until it's divided into three parts. He doesn't come in until part two, and then the trial, which is also unusual for an Agatha Christie novel, happens in part three. So typically she does not have trials, and typically she has the detective kind of come in, and the murder happens pretty quick. So this one was like different.
Psycho, where the murder happens halfway through, and then it's the investigating.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. So it was fun. I enjoyed it. I don't remember what I rated it. Let me look and see.
I don't rate.
Yes,
things.
Megan doesn't rate, so don't expect ratings from her. I rated it 4 stars. So yeah, it's pretty good. I enjoyed it. All right. Something new.
Something new. So this one I co-read with my good friend Garrett, and he picked it.
Hello, Garrett.
Hey, Garrett. And it is The Measure by Nikki Ehrlich.
Oh, everybody's talking about this one.
Yeah, I had not heard of it until Garrett was like, "Hey, let's read this book." But if you haven't heard of it, it's about basically everyone in the world wakes up on this particular day to find a box outside of their door or wherever they are currently that says something like, "Inside of this box contains the measure of your life." And some people choose to open it right away, and some people are like, "Yeah, I don't know what this is or who it's from, so I'm not going to." And inside is a string, and people start to suspect that the string somehow correlates to how long you will live. And after a bit of research, because there are billions of strings now, they discover that it does in fact correlate to how long you will live. So it's basically, and that happens like very fast. That's the premise of the book, but it's sort of like the fallout from how society responds to this knowledge of when they're going to die. And of course, as the book goes on, the science of it gets more and more specific on, like, at first it's like a range, and then it's like a year, and then it's like a month. And some people still choose not to open and not to look, which I think was part of the fun of mine and Garrett's conversation too. And I brought Jesse into it, of course, too. I was like, "Would you open your box?"
Jesse is my future
Jesse is my fiance.
Yes.
So he and I both decided we would not want to open our box.
Really?
Yeah, because if it was long, that'd be great, but we risk that it's not long. And Garrett actually said he would open his box. And if it was short, then you live life to the fullest and you do all the things. And if it's long, then you know that you're, kind of invincible until the end of your string ish. But I wouldn't want to risk it being short and then me just being totally depressed and wrecked for the whole rest of my life. And then of course there's like, and if so, it follows like some different characters, and they're sort of interconnected in different ways. But like some of them are in relationships where one person has a long string and one has a short, and they have to navigate that too. And there's, and then they have to decide whether or not they're telling their families about their short string, and whether or not they're letting other people in the world know. And then there's different consequences too for like military service. If you have a short string, you're now restricted as to the jobs that you can perform.
Oh gosh.
So it's really interesting from a societal standpoint. Garrett thought it was boring. He said, I don't remember what he said, but it was plotless and I don't know, basically boring. But I really liked it for the like the kind of aspect of like, what would the world look like if something like this were to happen, which we both agreed that the book did very well. It was pretty accurate as to what would happen, and politics get involved and all of that. So I really enjoyed it.
And did you buy it? Can I borrow it somewhere?
I think I have it on Audible.
Okay.
On Jesse's Audible.
Okay. The one I can't ever log into for some reason. Yeah. Well, that's very interesting. I don't know if I would want. So here's my curiosity. I think I would want to know in some ways, but also, even if I said no, I don't want to know, I don't know that I could stop myself from knowing. All right. My something new. Thank you. I was like, wait. My something new was Finley Donovan is Killing It by Elle Cusimano. Everybody's been talking about this series. I knew the third one was coming out soon. So I read an ebook borrowed from the library, as well as an audio of this borrowed from the library. It was fast paced. It's not deep. It's very funny. It's a mystery. And I've talked about it, I think, on another day. Another video it's about a woman who's divorced and she's really struggling, and she's got these little kids, and she's an author, and she's behind on her deadline to write her next book, and her books aren't exactly super successful, and she's in a Panera talking to her editor about how behind she is on the deadline, and the editor's giving some figures about money and how much this, they're not going to give her this money if she doesn't finish. And just do it and those kinds of things. And the woman in the Panera thinks that she's a hit person and that she is being paid to kill someone. So she slips her a note and asks if she'll kill her husband for $50,000. So you got to read it too. I know it was fun. And again, fun. It's not anything that's gonna, it's a cozy kind of mystery, hilarious. There's lots of great characters. I also read book 2, but that's not part of my, something old, something new, something broad, something blue, but I really liked it. So that was my new, because it's fairly new and it was definitely new to me. I hadn't acquired it before that. So
that'd be a good premise to turn into like a psychological thriller.
I think it
like a comedy is cool, but like a serious
it could be made into a movie too pretty easily. Like I said, book 3 came out the end of January. So I think there's at least 3.
Finley Donovan's still killing it.
Second one is Finley Donovan knocks him dead, and I don't remember what the third one is. I gave that one 4 stars. Let's see if I can tell you what the third one is. Finley Donovan jumps the gun is the third one. Yeah, that was fun. I'm glad I read it, and like I said, I'll probably go on. All right, so now it's something borrowed.
Something borrowed. I borrowed from you. And it was The Invited by
Jennifer McMahon.
Jennifer McMahon. I think I liked it more than you did. It is a haunted house book, which I'm, pretty into ghost stories and haunted house books. But the premise is instead of buying or moving into a haunted house, they build a haunted house. So it's this couple that moves into land that they bought cheaply in this little town, like on a bog or a marsh or something.
Yeah,
swampy. Yeah, and she's like, they're kind of both into history, but particularly her. And so she kind of goes around finding elements from the town, like recycled bits and bobs from wherever, to build a house. But they all tie back to the story of this woman who originally lived on the marsh, bog, swamp, whatever, in that area, who was executed for witchcraft back in the early 1900s. I think it was like 1901 or something. So much later than the witch, craze happened.
Trials, right.
So the town sort of stays away from the area because they say that it's haunted by this woman. And they kind of also don't like the couple that moved in there because they feel like they're stirring up her ghost and that bad things happen when she comes around. And so but the woman part of the marriage, it's also about a married couple. The wife is like really interested in figuring out more about this woman's story. And so she goes purposefully looking for elements that in some way connect to her or her lineage, to use to build a house. And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I remember liking it. Yeah. Did you read The Winter People?
I got that for you, but I didn't read it.
Yeah, I was gonna say
it sounded good. Yeah, I'd like to borrow it.
I think I have unpacked that one. So yeah, I like The Winter People slightly more, but not everybody feels that way.
Did you have something else that I read? The Drowning Kind. It was
I did not read that.
Yeah, okay. I read that one. I also have that one. You can borrow it. That one was really good too. That one was, let me look back up. That was a woman who she got like a voicemail from her sister, and she doesn't really speak to her sister very much because they're kind of estranged because her sister's a little bit wacko. Like I think she has like bipolar disorder and she's like unmedicated and a little unhinged. And her sister says, I don't remember what she says in the voicemail, but something strange. And she gets the voicemail and then finds out that her sister is dead. Right after she called her and left the voicemail, she drowned in the pool that was at the house that I think was owned by their grandmother. And so she goes back to the house, and tries to figure out what happened. And meanwhile, we learn more about the house and the swimming pool. And it's it's fed by a spring. It's not like a chlorine swimming pool. It's fed by a spring in the area. And so we learn all about the history of that spring and the pool and the house like years and years and years before this family even moved in.
She does that a lot. She goes back and back and back.
Yeah, and also like back to their childhood and their experience of being in the pool as children. And their grandmother always told them they're not allowed to swim in the pool at night. Anyway, I really enjoyed it. I read that a while ago. I read that when I when COVID, I think so. When COVID first happened, because I remember I was listening to it. I had to get COVID tested to go back to work, and I was listening to it in the line, which was like a 2.5 hour line, drive-through line to get COVID tested.
Fun.
And you looping around and around and around, and I was like, oh, this is great. So at least I had a book to read.
Isn't that funny how our memories now are going to be connected to COVID for so long?
I like a good ghost story.
I do too.
There's ghosts in that one too.
Yeah. So my something borrowed was Mad Honey by Jodi Picoult, and this is kind of a stretch. I mean, I took a liberty on this because I actually borrowed it from the library in the hardcover version, and I listened to it on Libro, and I purchased it because I could tell it was something I was going to want. Mad Honey's by Jodi Picoult and Jennifer Finley Boylan. So it's co-written, and it is the story of two women and their children. And the one woman is a beekeeper, and she had a violent relationship in her past. And so she and her son fled. No, with her ex-husband. So her and her son fled to a place where her parents had lived and raised bees, and she continued that tradition as a beekeeper. And her son is a teenager, and he meets a young girl named Lily, whose mother has also fled from something. Lily and this woman's son begin dating, and I feel like a lot of people know some of this, but I also want it to be a surprise in some ways, because I think that makes it even more special in some ways. But Lily has some secrets. Their relationship unfolds, and some things happen. And no, I gave it 5 stars, by the way. Lisa read it too.
Does he get stung to death by the bees when he's looking for her lost ring?
Here's what I love, the way it says: a soul-stirring novel about what we choose to keep from our past and what we choose to leave behind. That's really sums it up. It does kind of tell you what's going to happen if you want to know, but if you want to go in blind, just go in blind. I think you have to be very open to. She always picks really difficult topics that people can really be on one or two sides of a thing, and one of two sides of a thing. And I think you have to, maybe if you have some reservations about sexual identity and gender identity, you might not like this book.
Or if you're scared of bees.
Or if you're scared of bees. Can we put in a GIF
of Nicolas Cage in The Wicker Man with the bee?
Yes.
Worst movie in the world.
We can, and we'll leave that in so people understand.
I think we should add that in.
Yeah, I do too.
God, it's terrible, and he's creepy.
Okay, so that was my something borrowed. So now we're on your something blue.
Something blue.
Yay.
Okay, I don't remember my author, but okay, I read Near the Bone by Christina Henry.
I've never heard of this book.
Yeah, I found it on TikTok.
Okay.
Book Talk, but it is a sort of I know you like secluded places, it's sort of ish secluded. It's about so it starts with a woman on a mountain, and she is going out to check the traps, and she finds a dead fox. And she is struck by that because the fox it seems like it's been killed by an animal. It's not in the trap. It seems like it's been killed by an animal, but it's just left there. It has not been eaten. So she finds that unusual. And so she goes back home, and on the way starts to worry about the fact that she will be late returning home because her husband, William, is going to be very angry. And we find out when she gets home that she's in this very, very abusive relationship with this terrifying man named William. And so she's trying to explain to him about the fox. And so he goes out and looks at the fox. And, that's how the story starts. And I'll be honest, I started the story at least once, maybe twice, and couldn't get past the first chapter because I was listening to it on audiobook and the narrator has a super soft and soothing voice, and it made me very sleepy. But once I got past the first chapter,
then it picked up.
It picked up a little bit, but she has that soft voice the entire way through. So I would recommend reading it in actual book form. No offense to the narrator, but so there turns out to be some sort of monster that is on the mountain that is like it's like a monster, like not, not like a bear or an animal, but like some sort of creature that is a monster.
So you have to kind of suspend belief and practical.
Although what I enjoy is that we never know exactly what the monster is. And we see bits and pieces of the monster throughout the book, but we never see the full what it is, and we don't get a full description of what it is either. But so she goes back to her home with her crazy abusive husband. We learn more about her and her relationship throughout the novel, but she's basically, there's a monster that's stalking them, and she's living with the monster in the cabin.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
And meanwhile, some college-aged boys, which are also the age that she is, arrive on the mountainside, and her husband is violently angry at the fact that there are other people within range of them, which you'll find out why as you read. But so they're monster hunting. They've heard rumors that there's some sort of monster, and they're cryptozoologists, so they look for, like, legendary monsters like Bigfoot and
I've never
and all that.
heard of cryptozoologists ever.
Yeah. And
is that true? That's the Sasquatch
Sasquatch
or Sasquatch.
Sasquatch.
Outlander.
Yeah, so that's what they do. They search for mythical creatures. So they're up on the mountain looking for this creature. Meanwhile, he is like, you have to leave, and they're like, no, we don't. It's public property. And they suspect that they might have seen, one of them suspects that he might have seen this woman before, and he can't quite place how he knows her. And that sort of sets up the premise.
Nice.
I won't tell you anymore because I think it's all supposed to be kind of secret. You learn as you go, but
yeah,
it was a good, adventure, sort of spooky, unsettling thing. There are things about the monster that I really enjoy, but it's creepy. It's unsettling.
Yeah,
and it's blue. The cover is blue.
The cover's blue. Yeah, I'll pop up thing.
Yeah.
So my blue book was Secluded Cabin Sleep 6, which I actually also borrowed. I have this on Libro as well. Lately, I've been trying to read more physical books, so I'm trying to maybe do both at the same time whenever I can, just so I can get back, because I kind of got out of the swing of physical books last year, and that made me kind of unhappy because I have so many of them.
I feel like I do more audiobooks than physical books just because I listen while I'm driving.
Yeah, well, there's that.
And while I'm getting ready.
While I clean, I listen to everything.
Cooking.
Yeah, cooking. So, Secluded Cabin Sleep 6, Lisa Unger. This was a first Lisa Unger read for me, although I have almost read one of hers before and DNF'd it quick on, but I thought I would go back to it. I think I just wasn't in the right place. So I had mixed feelings about this one. It was blurbed by Ruth Ware and Jilly McMillan and Heather Gudenkauf, so I had really high hopes, and I liked the premise. So it's this brother and sister who are both married, and the brother
not to each other,
and the brother is a wealthy guy. He has this business, and the woman's husband makes pretty good money, and the brother sets up this premise of getting a secluded cabin somewhere in the Florida area, because they live in Florida. In fact, I think they live around Clearwater, which is funny because I lived in Clearwater. I grew up in Clearwater from my high school years to when I got married. So they're secluded in this cabin, and it's fancy, and you have a personal chef, and you have all these things at this cabin.
And then the personal chef reveals that their beautiful house has a spine tingling history.
He does. Is that what it says? Yeah, he does. But that's part of my challenge in telling you about this book. It's the two of them, and then her best friend, who also used to date her brother, and another man that she's dating. And so there's three couples in this secluded cabin, and there's a storm coming, which is a hurricane. The chef and the staff are kind of odd. And so here's my problem with this book. I don't even know what I rated it. My problem with this book is that there are a lot of tangents that seemingly have nothing to do with the end sort of wrap up of this book. I don't think I rated, no, I did. I did end up giving it 4 stars, which I'm surprised, but I think it was truly only 3.5 when I rounded up. They threw in so many red herrings, or she threw in so many red herrings, that I found it to be distracting and a little bit unrealistic in some ways. And I don't think that they needed to be there. It is what it is. I'm not saying I wouldn't recommend it. I'm just saying it was weird, and it threw in some things in people that just seemed like, seriously, like, just, I don't even know why you even went there. Yeah. So it does happen. And I think Ruth Ware is guilty of doing that on occasion too. But most of hers do kind of tie up. These,
did Ruth Ware do the one with the they were in the cabin and there was a snowstorm and there was a skiing?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
That was not my favorite. One by one. That was one by one. Yeah. I mean, I still liked it, and I think the same is true for Lisa Unger's book. I still liked that one. Did you read The It Girl yet?
I don't think so.
I have it.
Is it by her?
No, it's by Ruth Ware.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't think
I have that. I will read another Lisa Unger, I think. This one wasn't like great for me, but it is blue. So there was that. That's it. We're done. Yeah, that was fast. We're not going to tell you what we're reading in the month of February for these prompts, because it'll just be a surprise at the end of February. And we'll do our best to make time to record this at the end of February, because that's when things are going to be ramping up. And then
I did have an extra. Actually, I had an extra too.
Yeah, tell us your extra. I have an extra too, because I read the second Finley Donovan.
Yeah. I had an extra something new, which was so the book is called Things I Wish I'd Known Before We Got Married, and it's by Gary Chapman.
Oh, I know who that is. Gary Chapman.
Yes, he's the author of the love languages.
Yes,
I think
so. Something like that.
I'm pretty sure he is.
Yeah.
So I found him on a blog, and so I wanted to read some nonfiction about marriages and preparing. So what I liked about it was the premise is a lot of people spend a lot of time preparing for the wedding, but not a lot of time preparing for the marriage. So I was like, oh, it's really good food for thought. Yeah. So I read it. It was a really short book. I will say it was pretty dated. It was a lot of advice about, the chapters were laid out like, oh, I wish I'd known blah, blah, blah. I wish I'd known blah, blah. So one of them was like, I wish I'd known that toilets weren't self-cleaning. And it was about that when you move in together, you have to figure out who's doing what tasks, because when he got married, back in my day, he didn't realize that toilets even needed to be cleaned, because they apparently had all been cleaned for him all his life. So most of the information was very dated, but there was some good information. And there's things about budgeting, and there was a chapter about becoming our parents. And how to navigate that. It was, I wish I'd known that like mother like daughter, like father like son was more than just a phrase. And it was about like all the things that annoy you about your spouse's mother or your spouse's father are things that you could be looking forward to in the future, and kind of how to have conversations about those things, which I thought was good. And how, like, first of all, to identify those things and have conversations about them in a way that's productive, and then, how to kind of navigate that. So that was good. But overall, I wasn't really into it. So I'm reading another one right now that I'm much more into. But it was all right. And then I read, I don't know if this is something new or something old. This Is Where It Ends, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce this person's name.
Oh no.
I'm not, because I'm going to butcher it. So This Is Where It Ends. I feel like they're making it into a movie or a TV show. Maybe
it sounds familiar to me, but maybe because somebody else has talked about it. But
yeah. So I had
it horror.
No, it's a book about a school shooting. It's about a high school shooting.
Is that one you gave me to put on Pango?
I have it. No, I didn't. I had it on my to read list on Goodreads, and Jesse bought it for me for Christmas.
Oh, that was sweet.
Yeah. and I brought it to the cabin. We went up to a cabin in Georgia for the holidays
with your dad and
with my dad and my stepmom and the whole family. And I brought it up there and I read it mostly on the way, but also a little bit while I was at the cabin. But I feel like I read it before, and it might just be because I've read a fair amount of school shooting books, like the Wally Lamb one. I really enjoyed, but like the details of this one I remembered while I was reading, so I feel like I've read it before and it's something old, but I'm not 100% sure. But it was really good. It was really good, and I think it's YA. I'm pretty sure it's YA. So as YA novels go, it was a good one, and I sometimes struggle with YA because they're a little too teenage for me. But this one, a difficult subject matter, I guess, but it was really good. And I think that if I remember correctly, it's going to be a movie or a TV show, and I think it's going to be a good one, but obviously not a happy one,
right,
but a good one. And, relevant.
I like Angie Thomas, YA. I like her a lot. She has something new out, and then they're making movies out of some of her stuff. And she's from Mississippi, so I like that too. But YA can be tricky. I'm
trying to think of what other YA I've read that I really enjoyed.
Well, you put one in to go on Pango that you didn't really love. This one?
No, this one here.
Oh, is that
actually,
YA? I thought it was.
Okay.
This is where it ends, which is the title of a book. This is where part 1 ends. We went off on a tangent. It ended up being longer than we'd anticipated. We started talking about other books. We both agreed that we would make that a separate video. So I'm done with part 1. I'm going to add this in, and then I will be finishing and uploading part 2 very soon. So I hope you enjoyed this wrap up of our first month of Something Old, Something Blue, Something Old, Something New, Something Borrowed, Something Blue. We sure enjoyed doing it, and I'll see you for part 2 very soon. Take good care. Happy reading. Bye.